Thank you for joining our Q&A. Good people, knowledgeable people. We are here to answer your questions. But this, you know the mistake a lot of people make? This thing is not merely a question and answer. Please shut the door, please, the noisemakers that don't know anything. Kehinde, Taiwo. This is more than a Q&A session. That's what we brand it as. It's not. Do you know what this is? This is an impartation session. Like, oh, so you're back. I thought you were learning bad habits. Oh, you found that you saw them there. They were, right? You saw gnashing of teeth outside there. You now came back. It's God can restore. Oh, all right. So, questions. We are taking 3 questions. Welcome back. Thank you for the Q&A. Tosin, welcome back for Q&A. AV has a question. We get 3. Teve, oh, you moved your own from last week. Did we not answer it last week? You have another one? No, hold on. Shoto, and is there anybody on YouTube? Did you guys say, are you monitoring YouTube? Who is monitoring YouTube? No, we answered the one for last week. Are you sure? Are we really sure? Do we have to take Teve's question? No? YouTube people? No. WhatsApp? All right, we'll take Teve's one. Teve, now what for you? I don't know who you... Oh, no. Teve, sorry. No. This one we answered. We answered that one. All right. So, Mike, from Soto to Teve, Soto to Avi, then Teve.
So my question is basically, can we look at the circumstances in a child's life to judge the quality of the parenting? Because people often say like, oh, look at this person, he's a doctor, the parents did so well. So I'm just wondering, to what extent, especially as Christians, is that right? Because people's lives also change up and down. So, for example, I think of like maybe T.D. Jakes and his daughter and how she has this incredible ministry, but she also got pregnant at 13. So are we going to say that he was a good parent he was a bad parent when she was 13, but now he's a good parent? So just a question on how we judge parenting.
Good afternoon. My question has to do with the World Economic Forum. Like, there have been a lot of talks about it lately, about depopulation and one world government and things of that sort that sound really scary. And I just want to know, how do we as Christians respond to all of that?
I wanted to ask how people in the community can come alongside parents as they strive to raise children in a godly way, as you were talking. For those who either are not yet parents or may not be parents at all, is the responsibility solely on the blood parents of those children? If not, then how do members of the community also come alongside them to also help?
That's a good question. We have taken 3, but we'll be able to take 1. I'll explain why. Teve, your question is the easiest of them. Very easy. Now, before I answer Teve's question, let me say this. One of the reasons why, again, I feel that usually the people that come here are a special group. Honestly, I just think you guys are a special group. And because you're a special group, I like to give bonuses. You know, I like to drop things here, and you guys watching, that people outside there don't get. So I'm going to drop a bonus, something here. That's your question. Next week, sermon. Next week, sermon. That's next week's sermon. Don't you guys feel already better than the people out there? You know, forget World Economic Forum, you know the inside of things that are happening. My staff self don't even know that. But now I've told you guys, that's next week's sermon. Watch out. Therefore, we can take one other question. Between Lola and Dara, who do I like more? Oh, okay. I was about to choose my favorite, which will have been very, very difficult. Not because I like both of you so much, but because both of you are particularly troublesome. Dara, go ahead.
Thank you for destroying my reputation.
No, it was already destroyed. There's nothing to destroy. I didn't destroy anything.
All right. See, people that don't know me now, they'll be looking at me sideways.
Please look at her sideways, up, down, everything.
Okay. So with all these tips that you've given, right, I'm not a parent yet, but obviously there'll be parents that know that they've not started well, but they've gotten to the point where they want to switch up, right? And I remember my own mom realizing at some point that I was a spoiled child, and she switched up, and the switch up was drastic. I actually thought she hated me. So it's up until now that I feel like I understand what she was trying to do. So, and I have seen with children or teenagers that I work with, they've realized the switch up in their parents, and they think their parents hate them, right? And because they are also fragile children, they are contemplating the worst, right? I didn't contemplate the worst, not because I wasn't fragile, but it's just because I was just exactly.
You're very scared.
I was there, yeah.
Very bold.
So how do you advise parents to switch up in a way that doesn't confuse the child too much? Because they do need to switch up, but the way can be, yeah. And then for the children one is I don't know. We don't know how. For the children, how do you explain to your child or to any child that your parents are behaving like this because of a certain way, especially because their brains are not. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you handle that?
Okay. Shoto's question was. Is it right to judge children after they become adults, judge parents, the parenting of people that have become adults and are doing well? Is it that simple? Yes and no. Yes and no. It's both very simple and not simple. So let me first say, parenting itself does not bring salvation of children. It just doesn't. Why? Because there's only one way somebody can be saved: through Jesus Christ. In other words, you don't solve all the person's problems, by good parenting. So, in the same way, bad parenting doesn't always yield bad results. Right? Sometimes some people have gotten real bad parenting, so that they really say, I know one of my heroes in the faith is a guy called A.R. Bernard. He's a pastor in a church in New York. And A.R. Bernard is one of, is a deep thinker on this whole issue of raising men and all of those things. Very, very sound father to the best that I know publicly. But A.R. Bernard's dad abandoned him on the day he was born. So it's hard to just say, his father had nothing to do, quote unquote, in how he became. Or maybe he did. The fact that he ran away meant that he is actually trying to be who his dad wasn't. So, no, it's not that simple. But it's also simple. These are exceptions. One of my favorite passages of scripture is 2 Timothy 1:5 and 3:15 combined together. 2 Timothy 1:5 and 3:15. Here, Paul talks about the salvation that is in Timothy. But he says that salvation was also in his mom, Eunice, and his grandmom, Lois. And so in 3:15, he says, you know how from infancy you learned the scriptures that were able to make you wise for salvation. In other words, what Paul is saying is this: parenting doesn't save you, but parenting goes a long way in helping you to see whether or not Jesus is the Lord that can save you. So parenting is in the realm of what we call principles, not promises. But principles work most of the time. That's why they are principles. It's just that principles have exceptions to the rule. Principles are rules. Rules of life, or rule of life that if you live by usually will lead to a particular result. But there are always exceptions. Now, the mistake some people make is to camp around exceptions as an excuse to forego the principle. They'll say, but I know this other person. It's like the person that says, when people say, I'm just giving, it's not a parenting example, but I've heard a lot of people say, see, smoking, When they say smoking will kill you, I know somebody, he started smoking in his 20s. He lived until he was 80 or 90. And you'll be like, that's absolute foolishness. Of course, there are one or two people, but the vast majority of people, when they started smoking in their 20s and they were in their 50s, they had all kinds of breathing problems, lung cancer, and all of those. So in general, smoking will kill you early. In general, bad parenting will lead to a lot of children that in adulthood will not be good, adults. In general, good parenting will lead to that. So I'm now not saying that they're not the factor of the child, there are different things here and there. But I'm saying that parents have a whole lot more control, if they give themselves to it, for the outcome of that child in latter stages. And we have a lot of proof of that. So I hope that helps there. Principle, not promise. We'll get to World Economic Forum. So, it's Dara's question. Dara, let me say, the solution to parenting gone bad, let's say it was permissive. That's sort of the example you gave. Let's say it was permissive. The solution to permissive parenting is not authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian parenting is never a solution. Just like the solution to authoritarian parenting is never permissive parenting. The idea isn't, sometimes we think about these things as on a spectrum. So you know what? It's like authoritarian is like positive 5. Let's say the best kind of parenting is 0. Authoritarian is positive 5. My children are positive 5. So what do I need to get them to 0? Give them negative 5, permissive. So we sort of put them on the scale. No, it's not on a sort of, not linear scale. It's a sort of one-dimensional thing. It's not like that. All the other 3 are bad. So what's the solution to permissive parenting? The solution to permissive parenting is authoritative parenting. However, the way I apply authoritative parenting for permissive children that have grown under permissive parenting is different for the way I would apply authoritative parenting for children that have grown under authoritarian parents or children that have gone under neglectful parents. Here's how I always say it when the question of church discipline, like we do church discipline in this church. I always say this, church discipline, and it's the same thing because what we are doing is discipling our children. Church discipline, most people don't like it because they see church discipline as this punishment thing. And I know in some churches that's what they do, but here's how we think about it with the Bible and how we practice it in this church. Everything we do, what the church exists for, is church discipline. What is going on right now is church discipline. Why? Because we are trying to disciple you by answering questions. We are talking to your mind at this point. It's discipline. But what's discipline? It's discipline to people who are curious, and so you respond to that curiosity with answers. If the person, though, is under demonic influence, what we don't do is to be answering questions. Discipline is different at that point. If somebody is depressed, what we don't do again is to give them theological exposés. Discipline is different, you see. So depending on the issue that you have in front of you, your toolkit of discipline changes. The same thing now, if somebody is caught in an egregious, unrepentant sin, the discipline becomes different. So, in the same way, depending on the dysfunction that is in that child, we would apply some of these things differently. I should say this, one more thing. When it's acute, and maybe I'll just say a little bit about this now for next week, but when it's acute, I would say, I'm a parent, I'm trying to grow as a parent, but I do think there are people called child specialists, right? And so sometimes things are really bad. That's why we have Chidima here, and that's why she was the one that took the talks yesterday, because she's mixing sociology, she's mixing psychology, she's mixing a lot of things there, apart from her own experience. And that's why she has a lot, she was talking about her clients. They are calling her when things are really bad. So sometimes it may get to a point where you need to involve a child specialist. Or it may not be as bad, but it may be bad, so you need to involve child counselors, and they help you. But I'll say, the solution to a bad parenting style is not to adopt another parenting style. So I would say also that I think the people most important to talk to here are the parents, not the child. I mean, of course, you want to help the child in the best possible way if you have access to the child, which is maybe pray over the child, maybe try and build some level of resilience in them, try and make them see that, sometimes love is not always expressed in the best possible way, but they should see the love that is in there. I've done that with a number of people, but not small children. It's a lot of adults, right? Maybe I'm counseling and they are resenting their parents, and they come up with legitimate things, and I try and take them through to see, I get, and I'm not endorsing what this is, but I want to humanize your parent in front of you, that maybe ignorance mixed with love came out in something that was bad. And I think that's one of the things we can do with the children to cope. But the big responsibility here is the parents. And the parents need to have some kind of parental counseling or what have you to help. And also they may need some external help as well. So I hope that helps.
Just because I don't want to answer that World Economic Forum question, let me just say some things about it. I think, Dara, I'll say for you that perhaps if you're asking more personally, that you're perhaps uniquely positioned to talk to kids with your own experience as well, to just explain to them about how you went through this sort of slight change, drastic change as you say it, and explain to them how that helped you to become who you are today, and that perhaps can also help them as well. And also to Shuton's question, I know Pastor Femi has already answered it perfectly. What I would say in addition to that is it's also important the reason why you are trying to either assess a parent when you see a kid. It's also important what is the motivation for wanting to assess the parent. If it is that you want to learn from this particular person, then whether the child or the adult has turned out good or bad, you would always learn something from that situation. It wouldn't be maybe trying to judge the parent on the basis of whether this person, because there are different metrics. The fact that somebody got pregnant at 13, to Pastor Femi's answer, does not mean that the parents failed, necessarily mean that the parents failed at their parenting. But then there are things, if you had a dialogue with the parents, that you could possibly learn from that parent, if that is the motivation behind trying to find out how things went. World Economic Forum, Pastor Femi will take.
How many of us know what the World Economic Forum is? Right, it's a gathering. Well, it's an organization first of all, but the apex of this organization is a gathering once a year in Davos in Switzerland, right? And it gathers the let's just call the movers and shakers in the world, right? Top businessmen, like top. So like from Nigeria, Dangote goes there. Tony Lumili sometimes goes there. But you see Jeff Bezos there, you see Bill Gates there, so there's business people, there's governments, right, politicians, so of most, heads of state or any significant country goes there, or maybe their foreign secretaries and things like that. And then you may have one or two other real, important people, maybe the largest NGO people. And what they do there, from what they say they do there, is to discuss issues that big issues that are facing the world, and seeing how these minds, these influential minds, can come together to chart ways forward to come up with things that help solve some of the biggest problems in the world. So that's what it is. They meet in Davos. Let me first say that one of my biggest ambitions in life is to be invited to Davos. I want to go to Davos. I wonder why they've not gathered spiritual people, spiritual minds there too. And I won't mind. I hear that things are not bad there. My sister lives in Switzerland, but Davos, and when she lives, it's not bad, but Davos, it will be nice. And any evil thing that is going on there, you guys know, if I come there, the darkness will flee. You know. The light cannot comprehend the darkness. Now, but there's always been, not always, more recent times, there's been a lot of suspicion about what's going on in Davos, that a lot of nefarious activity goes on there, that the people who are gathering there, they are really gathering there for their own means, for their own benefit, and they don't really care about the masses. And then there are other things that people start talking about. There's huge agendas. George Soros, I don't know if you ever heard of George Soros, the Hungarian investor, is very tied to that. And they say that he's trying to, depopulate the world and all of those things. The depopulation agenda, among many other things. Let me back up. Probably the last 300 years, but more acute in the last 150 years. There's been the floundering of what we will call, for want of a better word, conspiracy theories around. And conspiracy theories usually, and by the way, when I just say conspiracy theory, I'm not necessarily saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying, but that there is a theory about a conspiracy. Okay? So I'm just using it I'm just using it neutral, in a neutral way. And conspiracy theories usually find expression of, they grow, there are a number of factors that have to come together for them to grow. One is there is a group of elites, powerful people in whatever way. Two, the elites in some ways, justifiably or not, are a bit more removed from the masses. And so they have certain things that the masses don't see. Three, there can be some level of suffering among the masses, some level of suffering. And so when you put all of that together, theories come up as to why those people are doing something that it doesn't benefit us, only benefits them. Now I can now say the vast majority of conspiracy theories are cuckoo. They are crazy. But the thing about conspiracy is that they will always have an element of truth in them. But I'm just saying, and in our own lifetime, I know you have gone through so many. Haven't you not gone through? How many of us knew that the Pope was the Antichrist? You ever heard that one? You never heard that one? I remember doing some research, this is like 20 years ago, doing some research. Remember that they used to say that the spirit of the Antichrist was in Hitler. It was first in Haman, the Agagite, and then it comes down all the way to Hitler. So that's why Hitler wanted to exterminate the Jews, all right? So, and that the spirit of the Antichrist was particularly Germanic, hold that thought, Germanic. But then the spirit of the Antichrist also it works through religions. And in particular, because it looks like Christ, but isn't Christ, the Roman Catholic one was there, so it has to be Christian. Now, not only was it just Christian, but you have to say where. And so they said the Pope. Who is the Pope? Vicarius Filii Dei is written there. The vicar of Christ, the vicar of God. So he is like God, but he's not God. It's Christian, but not Christian. So there was the spirit of the Antichrist in the Roman Catholic Church. Hitler was German. A number of years ago, Pope Benedict became the Pope. Where was he from? Antichrist. Yeah, he's dead now. Later I found out he's one of the greatest theologians that have ever existed. He is not. And I'm saying, I've done that one. People have done Hitler. There are different things here. Conspiracy theories always have some element of truth, but usually somebody concocting some kind of lack of evidential kind of proof or something. And quite frankly, a lot of people are attracted to it because here's the thing about conspiracy theories. They are simple and complex enough to be embraced. Simple and complex enough. So they always give you complex dots of things that you have to draw. So we now become like sleuths. We become like investigators. You become like permissive, or I don't know, the one Matlock or some. Okay, those are just flying over people's heads. All right, but anyway, you become that so you can draw those things. But it's simple enough that most people, regular people, can understand it. That's why it's attractive. So when people engage in conspiracy theories, people that have been shot away from the ivory tower of knowledge feel like, I'm engaging in real knowledge. That's why number one word that comes up with people that are conspiracy theorists and are advertising to you, what is that word? It starts with an R, ends with an H. Research. Say, do your research, because it makes you look a bit brilliant. So I would say, be careful. We've done 5G, we've done coronavirus, we've done all of those things. Now, with all of that being said, I think you can become so conspiracy theories, like myself, that anybody suggesting about any nefarious thing happening in one, you dismiss everything. Now, I'm not about to yet embrace something, but I would say that when you dismiss, there are certain legitimate things that can come that you now, there's a way you dismiss it that makes you look like you're even part of the problem. So, for instance, I haven't researched the whole Davos thing and the population thing, but here's what I can say. I think the people behind Davos, the World Economic Forum, and all of those, do most of them have within themselves their philosophies and all that? And do they have a positive bent towards people having more than 2 children? No. The Western world, I've quoted those statistics here before, that the population rate of any place is 2.1. Go and check every Western organization, every Western country. Go and check the OECD countries. They don't believe in that. Some of them are just trying to turn now, but they can't. So they're generally not about having 4 or 5 children. In many of those countries, abortion is also legalized. So there is a way that they can actually come up with policies that will, it will be leading to depopulation in that regard. But it's not, how can we take over the world and depopulate these people? I don't think it's like that. When some of these people are introducing contraception to Africa, I think it's really, the way they do family planning, all of those things, I don't think it's right, but I don't think behind everything, I think it's wrong policy. I think it's policy sometimes like steeped in ungodly thinking based on decades of moving away from Christian kind of thinking. I believe that. But I'm not sure that all these people that go to Davos have sat down together to be able to come up with this one system of government to take over the world. And let me give you one reason. Just one reason. For those who are married, they know this. Marriage means 2 become 1, isn't it? 2 become 1. Do you know it's a challenge? It's a vision that God has put. Because no matter how much you love each other, no matter how much everything, that becoming 1, Olegon, is hard. My wife and I, 13 years at it, it's very, very what? Hard. It's very difficult for 2 people who love each other, who have the same philosophy and same theology and all that, to still agree on everything. Now, what you are doing is you are bringing businessmen of different countries. They don't even they don't believe in the same reasons for business. The West, some of them are coming with climate change, blah, blah. You think Dangote cares about climate change? The governments that are coming, some of these governments, they are there for 25 years. They're only thinking about how they should remain there. Some of these ones, they are thinking about whether they'll make the first term. How do you bring all these diverse people from all these different things and get them to agree on one government? Every government that you have in countries, see what happened with the Rwandan guy that quickly removed all his service chiefs and everything. In Britain, Rishi Sunak is shuffling his government. Even one government of a nation, it's very hard for the cabinet to agree. It is now one world government that will somehow agree. Practically, and all of those things, I don't think it works. And then finally, I would say theologically, when I look at the book of Revelation, I am not sure that is how, I don't believe that is necessarily how the final day battle and all of those things is going to come about. I don't think it necessarily teaches of one, in fact, I'm almost sure it doesn't teach one government, one world government. People have theorized, I've been there too before, is the European Union. Before the European Union, by the people that I grew up under, they said it was the Soviet Union. Until the Soviet Union collapsed, what do? We look for European Union. Believe me, it will soon be the African Union. Because in 40 years' time, Africa rising will not be Africa rising, will have risen. And at that point, it will not be. All of these things, conspiracy theories, I don't think we have to worry. So let's identify bad policy for what bad policy is. Let's identify ungodly policy for what ungodly policy is. But let's also be careful how we don't necessarily give in to conspiracy theories that I would say theologically is not backed, but also practically doesn't actually seem realistic. So that is my, so Charles Schwab, you saw what I've done for you. If you are watching this, please, I'll just pray to open things up. And I won't even call Jesus. I'll just say, in his name, It's a lie. I believe in Jesus. All right. God bless you all. Thank you.